Yeah, thank you, John. I have to manage some expectations. Actually, I have just a question to offer, some insights, and honestly, I need your inspiration and help to help me with this topic, because to understand where I'm coming from, I've been working with KPMG for 15 years on this topic of how can you really implement governance, risk, and compliance systems within global companies. And I've done this for 15 years, and at a certain stage, I really got tired with it. Because what we could see is exactly what the speaker before was indicating. Companies spend a lot of money on governance, risk, and compliance issues, but the outcome, is it really improving on it? Is it really making a difference there? So what is it delivering as a value except of a tick mark, let's say, from an audit company that says this is operating effectively at the very end? And I really don't have the answer until today. I was going out of the firm 3 years ago and concentrating on, we have to work on risk culture. We have to, that was the idea, because I came from this background, and I was saying, we have to work on culture. It has to do with behavior. And I call it risk culture, and I know a bit of what Human Synergistics was doing. I was accredited in 1999, where I did my LSI back in the days. And then I thought, okay, maybe that can help me with this topic. I'm still here standing in front of you and say, it is not, I haven't resolved it. Instead of resolving it, I've done a lot of other work, transitional work, which was more in, getting people on board, think true north, inspiring, getting lean, and, getting the people motivated and really doing positive, proactive things. And I was always thinking, why isn't that working in this risk and compliance area somehow? And so I would like to guide you, let's say, through some slides and invite you that you can bring me some ideas that could help on this topic. I think it's the blind spot of consulting. I think there is huge potential in here. If we, as a consultant group, let's say, can come up with something constructive in that area. So that's the topic. That's why I call it, is it an unnoted topic for consultants? Have we overseen something? And I would like to start with the case I found super, super interesting. And using, let's say, the name of Deutsche Bank. It's not about banks here, it's not about Deutsche Bank, it's not about, but the case is very interesting. Why is it interesting? If you know the banking sector, it's the highest regulated sector maybe, except from energy and medicine and pharma. But it's so highly regulated. They have so many supervisory bodies in there. They have so many control systems, controlling systems, everything all over the place, code of conduct, all that stuff. And still they haven't managed to deal with what I now just call risk culture issues. And there's this picture I saw in the newspaper from Deutsche Bank. It's not too old. I think it's 1.5 years ago or 2 years ago, when the new CEO team came up and raised this, wanted to start this cultural change program. And the supervisory trading rooms, investment banking, the deal making is recorded. When the investment bank do their deals, they are recorded. And what happened there is they discovered somehow that they use really inappropriate language. That's the first thing. And so that comes back to, is culture not mirrored back in the language somehow, right? And the other thing is, it indicates that they are selling poor quality products to customers. So they have this ethical issue, huge ethical issue, which is not transparent to anybody. Why is that? So we have this really big problem, highly regulated, but we have a kind of a culture in the investment banking sector somehow that is not operating to the espoused values of the company, and seems to be not working in favor of their own customers. And I was really interested by that, because I thought, why is that? How can that be? Except from, I know that these guys getting paid on high bonuses and so on and so forth, but is there a deeper meaning beyond? And then I started to look at some court scenes. You can see on YouTube a lot of stuff in there. And what was interesting about these court scenes was somehow the judge was speaking to the investment banker, and it's kind of two subcultures are just talking to each other, and they don't get, the investment banker cannot see any problem with the thing, because he said, I sell something that the client wants to have in his exposure. I don't know what kind of positions he has. I can sell anything that he wants, so what is wrong with it? Okay? And the judge on the other side said, yeah, but hey, this is a poor quality product, so, you know, don't you have an ethical problem with this? So we have two professional subcultures talking to each other, and if you see it from a very neutral point of view, you ask yourself, this investment bank, he's right. There is nothing really wrong here, let's say, except in the language that they use, because they don't know in the speed of the market what the other end has as a position, and they sell it. So what's the problem then? Okay, and I've selected a scene. Maybe you can listen to the language, and we have a real example in here, which we then can maybe build on and play a little bit of, maybe we are the bank, and then we see what's happening in there, okay?
Now, before you sold all that stuff that we just described in 166, $600 million of Timberwolf securities is what you sold. Before you sold them, this is what your sales team were telling to each other. Got it? 105?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Look what your sales team was saying about Timberwolf. Boy, that Timberwolf was one shitty deal. They sold that
Mr.
shitty
Chairman,
deal.
This email was from the head of the division, not the sales force.
Whatever it was, it's an internal Goldman document.
This was an email to me in late June.
Right, and you sold
the
Timberwolf.
Transaction.
No, you sold Timberwolf after as well.
We did trades after that.
Yeah, okay. It's the trades after.
Some context.
Yeah,
might be helpful.
The context. Let me tell you, the context is mighty clear. June 22 is the date of this email. Boy, that Timberwolf was one shitty deal. How much of that shitty deal did you sell to your clients after June 22, 2007?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know the answer to that, but the price would have reflected levels that they wanted to invest in.
Oh, of course. But they don't know you didn't tell them you thought it was a shitty deal.
Well, I didn't say that.
No. Who did? Your people, internally. You knew it was a shitty deal, and that's what your email shows.
I think the context, the message that I took from the email from Mr. Montag was that my performance on that deal wasn't good. And I think the fact that we had lost money related to that wasn't good.
How about the fact that you sold hundreds of millions of that deal after your people knew it was a shitty deal? Does that bother you at all? You sold to customers something?
I don't recall selling hundreds of millions of that deal after that.
All right, let's take a look. Exhibit 166, series of emails. First is June 26, 07. That's after June 22. July 1, 2007, tells the sales force the top priority is Timberwolf. Your top priority to sell is that shitty deal.
Mr.
Got it?
My comment was I didn't recall the sales. That
You got
that
it?
we were
160
trying to sell.
Okay, you're trying to sell a shitty deal, and it's your top priority. Come on, Mr. Sparks.
Well, Mr.
Should
Chairman-
Goldman Sachs be trying to sell, and by the way, it sold it, a lot of it after that date. Should Goldman Sachs be trying to sell a shitty deal?
Well,
Can you answer
Again, I
that
didn't
one?
use those
Can you
words,
answer
but-
that one, yes or no?
there are prices in the market that people want to invest in things. I didn't use that term with respect to this deal.
No, it's your sale. Well, who did use that term? Who's Tom Montag? Who's Daniel Sparks?
That's me. Mr.
And who's Tom? I know it is. Who's Tom Montag?
Tom Montag was the head of the division at the time.
And he was telling you on June 22, boy, that Timberwolf was one shitty deal. And then you got Exhibit 166, series of emails pushing the Goldman sales force to sell Timberwolf securities. First is June 26, 2007 email from GS Syndicate. That's your sales force. The sales force is told in 166, please focus on the CDO axes below, one of which is Timberwolf. The next email, take a look, July 107, tells the sales force the top priority is Timberwolf. The next email is July 24th, 2007. Timberwolf is again listed as one of the top priorities. Next is an email, July 3rd, still after the shitty deal assessment, and one in which one of GS sales team leaders, Matthew Biber, writes that with regard to Timberwolf, I'm all over these guys. The last email, August 22, again highlighting Timberwolf as a top priority. So, if you can't give a clear answer to that one, Mr. Sparks, I don't think we're going to get too many clear answers from you, but I've taken much more than my time, and we're going to come back to you and to the others on my second round.
Okay, I hope that makes it quite clear what's going on. So it's not a Deutsche Bank topic, it's really all over the place, especially, let's say, to that investment banking professional subculture of how to speak and the kind of things that are going on. And I asked myself, there is something in there. Nobody has, I don't know if nobody, but I have never thought about. There is some assumption behind this in this investment banking area that is driving a behavior that's fully okay for them. And why don't we? And isn't that something I also discovered when doing these GRC implementation projects? Do we impose this stuff on people, or is there some kind of an assumption that is totally against that thing to become really effective? And so that was the open question. I still have that question today. But going further, it's like, how does the consulting world approach this topic? And I put in, let's say, it's a little bit older, but it still is that kind of approach there. It's like pushing surveys with the, let's say, with the banner of we have this audit standard, or we have this compliance rules and regulation behind us that force us to do this, but they impose and come with a survey where they act upon completeness of topics, completeness of how do we see that we have an effective risk culture in this area. And it can be a list of 100 criteria. And I just picked out, let's say, the most top-down thing, like, do you have a code of conduct? Do you understand your code of conduct? Is there a process in place? Is there a system in place? Is there a control system in place? Is it audited quite regularly? And if you think about this, and most of the guys, I mean, if you have a list of 100 criteria, it's easy, that, let's say, 40, 50 are out of range. So what would that then cause? It's really a thing of, then we have to implement this. And what does that mean? We have to change structures, we have to change processes, we have to change systems, we have to change the culture from that, let's say, perspective of completeness of an idea of what can drive an effective risk culture, if that exists at all, right? And I think this is the blind spot of consultancy, how to deal with this in a way that makes perfectly sense. Because imposing that stuff on others doesn't make any sense. I really say this because I've done this for years, right? And it gets worse because in the regulation body, the term sound risk culture is a term that is really existing now. And there are auditing standards in Germany, PS 980. They have this term compliance culture, and they somehow judge other consultants or audit firms on, is this culture designed, hear the words, is this culture designed effectively, and is it somehow contributing to the system that it can operate effectively? Now there comes this thing, we talk about organizational culture and stuff like this, where we see culture as a property of a group. And here, slowly but surely, culture becomes a property of a concept. It's the same thing that we had with the safety culture, where the colleague told me, the safety culture, somehow it feels like it's the wrong term. It should be, under the umbrella of organizational culture. It's the same with this risk culture thing and the compliance culture. It becomes a term that is used worldwide, and it becomes more and more natural because the auditors, they audit it into the companies. It's like it's not leadership is driving culture. It's like really on this angle, there comes something from outside who pushes it into it. It becomes something where we, I think, have the opportunity, first of all, to tell them it doesn't make any sense to declare something like culture as a property of a concept. By the way, Edgar Schein said this years ago. And then it is like, what then is actually the thing that could make this a reasonable concept? And obviously the survey kind of stuff is just driving the whole thing in the wrong direction. There are other consultancy firms, they have somehow, and here's the example I took from McKinsey, because what they are trying now is they're thinking about, there is a root cause here. It's not about the code of ethics alone. It's not about the systems alone. It could be something, I don't know, standing here, about pure communication. I think this is already one step further, because here something comes in. If you explain it to an auditor, you wouldn't understand, or you all understand what pure communication is and that it really matters, right? We have indicated this already in the presentations before. So here is this attempt to go one step to the root cause of things. And if we go to the root cause of things, we do not end up in the concept, but we do end up in actual behaviors. We do end up in things like, can we really openly deal with problems here or not? Do we accept, in that banking example, do we accept that we are in these types of markets? If we accept it, why do we have a problem with how we deal with it then? So it's a really complicated issue. By the way, when you look at the McKinsey description underneath these terms of pure communication, it gets back to what we call kind of causal factors. It goes back to the systems view again, and so you end up in the same view as the survey from KPMG at the end of the day. So they are not there already. So there is an opportunity, I think. How can you do it? So the first step then is, there's an observation in there, and I used some terms that are not familiar with the human synergistic because I wanted to keep it more general. There are these two boxes on the left-hand side. So the whole thing, what is actually done by consultants is, let's work on value statements, on structures, on processes, on control systems, and so on. And then from there, we can really have the information to say, this is an effective risk culture, this is an effective all-over compliance system. Now translated into these boxes. What they are looking at are the espoused values of the company. Take a look at Deutsche Bank, take a look at Goldman Sachs, and look back years. If you can find something that is not best practice in there, I will pay you 100 euros quite away. Because the espoused values by these companies, they are top, right? What gets communicated outside into the stakeholder world, they take care of it, of course. But now the risk culture comes mainly, is this in place? And is there a leader in place, toned from the top, who's really telling people, what the values of the company are? But you are still in this box. You are still in this orange box. You're not outside the box. And then there comes this other box. I called this, and I used the terminology of Edgar Schein, artifacts. So things that were created or have been created to, let's say, deal with the challenges that the institution faces. It can be structure systems, and this is coming from years. This is not something that is there and can be changed in a second, but it's there and it's really driving something, let's say. It does something to the institution. And it's not only, it has this notion of there is a key. If we can, change something there, it could change something elsewhere. That's correct. The problem is, when you take a look at at banks, the complexity and the challenges that they face and the things they bring into it, there's so much confusion in the system that when you want to change that confusion, you don't do it. It's better you close it, right? You close it and then you start from scratch again. So there is also this notion, we have causal factors, and causal factors can drive, let's say, another culture, but there's so much confusion in some of these systems that even that I know it, it doesn't really help. And somehow both of these boxes, if they operate effectively, just from pure looking at something, you look at the process, you look at the trading area, and then you say, they have documented it, they have identified the risk in there, they have these types of controls in there, the audit department comes by, audits it, it's all perfect, it's all good. And then they come out and say, okay, and we directly go to the green box and say, this thing is operating effectively. So I have never done this, so you must have a little bit of patience with me. But let's assume, and bring in another element. We are this bank, and we have this shitty deal thing going on, okay? And let's say these tables, you are self-protectors. You are the passive defensive guys. Let's assume something, that you are working in a bank. So these tables here, you are working in a bank in the back office area, and you earn a lot of money. You like your job, and you work by 9 to 5. It's all good. So the least you want to have is standing out, right? It's going in front of everyone else. It's just like, yeah, it's good we have rules, because then I can do my job according to the rules. Everything is perfect. We are compliant. Tick mark. We are effective. Let's stay in this energy. And now we bring, and I want you to raise your hands if you can answer the question with yes. I bring in the best practice tool of being super compliant. Do you know what it is, by the way? It's a whistleblowing hotline. You have the whistleblowing hotline, and now you self-protectors, passive defensive people, You pass by the trading room and you hear the shitty deal conversation going on. And if you can answer the question with yes and raise your hands, would you be the one who takes up the phone and rings and uses that whistleblowing hotline? Would you be the messenger? Raise your hands. All right. What we have is still a super effective compliance system because these guys, they really care about the rules. And now we have this wonderful system also in place, and the auditors do, yeah, we have a whistleblowing hotline, and everything is great, right? Then let's say on this side, these tables here, you are the shitty deal makers. And let's say the self-promoters, okay? You have that self-promoting attitude and energy. Now, let's assume one case. There's a case of, there's this guy in your team who does a lot of shitty deals. And he's really on the verge of getting promoted instead of you. Now, again, if you can answer the question with yes, you raise your hands. You self-promoting people, if you have the chance to pick up the phone, would you be the messenger? Please raise your hands. Of course you would. It's by pure assumption, of course, right? Now the one... Pardon?
I would just have a shitty deal. Because I'm in the aggressive defensive culture. I can one-up him.
Yeah, we have even more shitty deals, but the good thing is, and which is also indicating we are on the right track, the whistleblowing hotline gets used. Some people raise their hands, they ring up the phone and everybody will tell. We have these passive defensive guys, this subculture here. They are great because every process is operating effectively. And then, some kind of a miracle, but this whistleblowing hotline gets really used, right? Now change, the guys who had raised their hands, we changed the assumption. It's the same guy we're talking about, all right? But now he's your buddy. He is really helping you to stand out, and this goes a little bit in your direction, to stand out against the other guys in this shitty deal apartment. The same question, would you be the messenger, the ones who raised their hands before? Nothing has changed. But look at the outcome. Look at the pure confusion, you know. It's just total crazy because we have everything is operating effectively in this kind of, you know, but nothing is really working. Nothing is really done for the right reasons, which is to, you know, have this appropriate language and sell good products to the customer. So then we have these guys. I call this babe discovers dirty dancing mentality. So where you have this positive energy because you are the future leaders of this company, and you really have this, you know, goal of, you know, aligning yourselves, getting a common goal, self-actualizing, you know, doing all that encouraging stuff amongst your peers, and then contacting everybody else and convincing them. We really have to deliver the best deals in the world because we are capable of doing it. We cannot do it right now, but we will develop it. We face really the challenge. And then you pass by and see other people doing this shitty deal kind of stuff. It's the same question. Would you be the messenger? Raise your hands. But this time, it is a different assumption behind. And this is, you know, there's another, what kind of assumption do you have? Why did you raise your hands? Can you describe that? Just come out with what you're feeling. What was the reason for it?
Because we want to do the best for everybody, for the client, for the company, and the shitty deal, it isn't the best.
Right. So it's a completely different, you know, and is this for the first time, it's the birth of responsibility, right? And if you take this, or if you watch this, it comes out, we should be constructive, right? But not in a way that is limited to a concept, but in a way that is, operating for the whole organization. So we come back to this thing, and I tried to structure it, and I came out, with the same, of course, structure that you see in on the OEIs on the next. Somehow, what you can see here is it does matter what kind of assumptions we have, what kind of subcultures we have in this company. We have to make it transparent. Without knowing it, we cannot really design just one thing, just a whistleblowing hotline. It's complicated, because if I want to implement an effective operating whistleblowing hotline, I have two chances. Everybody is blue, right? Which is quite very optimistic, let's say. Or I have to take into consideration first the tacit assumptions that are not observable of the subcultures in the company before I can even create something that is operating in a certain direction. And it will never be the one, that linear, quick step. We do it like we have to be compliant in 2 years. It is in the US, it's a nightmare, right? It is just bring in everything because we want to be compliant in 2 years. It's a tactical management challenge to somehow get those guys on the bandwagon, then those guys, and find some leaders who can do this. And so what do you end up with then? It's nothing else than a transformation process at the end of the day. But it includes something special, because it includes how do you really then design the process and the tools which shall help the company to be compliant at the end of the day without taking out all that stuff that is contributing to the company's performance, right? So that is really the challenge. And I think the most important thing in this picture is this red thing, the specific problem. Because if you don't have that problem of the shitty deal, you don't know what you are talking about. When trying to create that process, you are lost. And go back to the slides before, that's exactly what's happening. Nobody asks you, or nobody on the consultant side asks the people, what is really the problem, their business problem, I think, and how is compliance supporting to that or helping with that, and then you can become creative, and then the self-actualizing energy slowly but surely pops up. But nobody asks it, so, and everybody says, we have to be compliant in 2 years, we cannot take care about individual specific problems in the way down, because we will never end up in something standardized, nothing that is really working. So somehow we are sabotaging, let's say, with that mindset, the possibility of arriving at something that is really helpful. And so I think now is a good time to start with this, because all that nonsense and craziness has already been done. We were through similar loops of improving and downsizing and streamlining and all that stuff. And now there is this window of opportunity to come in with with an intelligent approach and indicate and start from the single really hardest problem kind of stuff, right? Like in the banking. Because imagine if you would pick the shitty deal as the problem. It's like the safety topic. It would change the whole bank. It would only this. You have only to concentrate on how does this happen. What is contributing to this? Why do we do it? And so on and so on. You end up, and it will change the bank only by focusing on that lever, that single most outstanding problem that is driving the whole madness. Okay. So. At least, and now it sounds like I have the answers. I don't have the answers, but I try to structure it in that way. Good. Don't take risk culture as a culture in itself. It's just a name for something that doesn't exist. It's organizational culture that is really the thing. And you have to take care of the subcultures and tacit assumptions within the company to understand what you should do when you talk about more effective culture that embraces risk more effectively. Let's describe it like this. And it's a tactical, it's a transformational process. It's not a one-shot thing you can do. And I think the human synergistics again, and somehow we proved it, you know? If you focus on the blue guys and the blue leaders, and then you try to, you know, do some intelligent work about how can we responsively design compliance tools for all the other guys that might be more difficult, you know, to take on the bandwagon, then you come into this direction, and I think the time for this is now. That's it.